All right, friends, who wants to podcast today? You are experiencing a haphazard, literally on the back of my car edition of the Tom Kelly Show. I'm here with Bobby Bonett or Bobby Bonnet?
Bobby Bonett.
Bobby Bonett. Bobby
yeah.
Bonnet. Okay, Bobby Bonett, who is running for school board in Massapequa. Now, for those of you who are not Massapequa or Long Island audience members, why is this important? One, I have an affection for lost causes. So I love underdogs. I don't care what your politics are. I love underdogs. And Bobby is the underdog. He has literally only 100 followers on Instagram. He might be up to 200 now. And
350, Tom.
Oh, you're up to 350.
There you go.
Okay, it's tripled in the last few days. And it's probably tripled because he's saying thoughtful stuff on Instagram. First of all, this is not an endorsement. I was thinking about Bobby and happened to see him walking down the street campaigning.
Massapequa.
Basically, this is very ramshackle. I want to say clearly to anybody about to leave me hate mail, this is not an endorsement.
You get directed my way.
Yes, and to be fair, why am I even doing this? Because I live in the neighborhood, or I live literally a few blocks away from the neighborhood that gave you George Santos, the guy who faked his resume. And the reason why everybody voted for George Santos is nobody paid attention. Newsday didn't pay attention. The local papers barely paid attention, and that's how we got George Santos. And now Bobby, I think, is a thoughtful man. We've spent a lot of time direct messaging, and there's a lot of rumors about you.
There is.
And let's start with this one.
I do want to say, though, Tom,
Yeah.
the fact that you're having a school board candidate on your podcast, I don't know how that's going to be for ratings.
Oh, let me tell you right now, it shows you how bad the podcast is. It shows you how low the ratings are that you can't possibly drive them lower. Or what does it say about the podcast? Like, you know what'll help this podcast out? School board candidates. But for real, man, let's start with this. You are at least a left of center guy running in a right of center town. Is that a fair?
I think it's fair to say that, I have progressive leaning viewpoints, but I don't have a party affiliation. I'm not a Democrat. I would view myself, I think you called me a moderate the first time we interacted online. I would say I'm a pragmatic moderate.
Yeah, but being a moderate in Massapequa is liberal.
It's left of what, the general makeup of many members.
Like the joke about my politics is when I go into the city, people think I'm a flaming Republican and they think I'm the death of the world. Mm-hmm. And when I come out here, people call me a snowflake.
Right, yeah. And I want to say, irrespective of the fact that I might be branded as a progressive or have progressive viewpoints, I'm also highly responsible from a fiscal standpoint. I run a media company with an 8-figure P&L. I have to manage line items in an expense budget, line by line. And the idea I want to bring to our school board is how do we make it, I feel you're getting tired, how do we make it boring? How do we focus on budgets with a level of responsibility that's thoughtful for our taxpayers, thoughtful in terms of property value, and then focused on student outcomes? We want this school to be as best as possible. That's what I'm focused on.
Okay, and that's why you're going to lose. There were a lot of long words in there. And I listen, and for the folks at home trying to figure out why Massapequa politics are national politics, we have two big issues that have put us in the newspaper. Issue one is whether or not we should keep our beloved logo, the Massapequa Chief.
That's right.
Okay, and the second one is an issue that I am very afraid to put my toe in. There's a statewide mandate that transgendered kids are allowed in all the bathrooms, blah, blah, blah. And Massapequa has decided to sue the state on both those issues. And I feel like that's what half of the town is voting on.
Yeah.
Listen, now I did a whole 20-minute podcast on the nuanced reasons why I'm in favor of saving the Massapequa Chief or something. And I did a 20-minute podcast on why I thought whatever executive, was it an executive order that banned the chief?
It's an education, the chief story, I'm not going to go through the whole history because I'm going to be short, but the chief story started in 2001 with verbiage and policy from then Governor George Pataki that districts in New York should move away from indigenous mascots.
Right.
And then the treadmill sped up in about 2023. And that's when the state said there's a timeline on moving away from what would be indigenous mascots. So this is a 25-year story that's really kind of,
Short
got
statement.
quicker,
Gun
yeah.
to your head. Are you save the chief? Not save the chief.
Save the Chiefs.
Save the chief.
100%.
How are you saving the chief?
Well, not through lawsuits, not by spending hundreds of thousands of dollars suing the state on lawsuits that are
But
engineered to lose.
is Massapequa really? Because listen, and this is the problem with Massapequa. All of my news is coming from the Massapequa Moms group and the Massapequa Dads Facebook group, where I think there are good people commenting.
Of course.
But it's gossip. Honestly, even me right now. I mean, the fact that anybody might be getting a view from Tom Kelly in the back of a parking lot is scary. I mean, the fact that you and I are doing a podcast where I've had friends buy weed.
Yep. There you go.
It says something about how local news is
Well,
lacking.
you talked about the Santos situation. You know, the community gets its news from sources like and the board's going to say, or the board has intimated, that the way we keep the mascot is by suing the state for its policy. What the state has said is if you talk with local tribes and you come up with a resolution that's thoughtful, you can keep the chiefs if it honors the district's heritage and it's thoughtful about what indigenous people want.
But okay, so I have two things on the chief
Yeah.
thing. One, is Massapequa School District money being spent suing the state? I have been told that it's volunteers.
No. There's hundreds of thousands of dollars that have been verified through Freedom of Information law requests. It's a lot of fun to file a FOIL action that show that the district is spending taxpayer dollars with law firms to sue the state for the purposes of the school mascot lawsuit.
Okay, now, what if people in town like that?
Well, you know, again, you asked earlier on my political leaning, and I would say, you know, as a town, we generally, I think our roots would be in fiscal responsibility and thoughtful leveraging of taxpayer dollars. You saw me going door to door today. People feel as though they pay too much in taxes. And so when the district says we're going to spend money on a lawsuit, what's the end goal here? Is it $600,000? Is it $1 million? Is it $2 million? At some point, you need to articulate what your end game is. And so even if folks think this is a righteous cause, they've been convinced that this is the only way to keep the mascot, I need to understand, you know, what's the durable resolution? If we want to keep the chiefs, how do we get there? What's the end game? And then, you know, what are next steps?
So my first problem with the Save the Chief thing is whatever legislation there is in Albany, it doesn't say ban Viking mascots. It doesn't say ban African American mascots. Now, I'm a stand-up comedian. I've done jokes that we should come up with a word more offensive than chief, and then we'll get it back. You know, like I've said, yeah, without putting you in a spot where I start doing jokes I've retired. But how would you say? And I'm going to also argue that there's no native. The Shinnecock tribe, which is a borderline casino.
Well, I don't know about that.
Okay, but I don't think they care. I think it's a cash grab.
Well, you know, I think they do care, and my understanding of the situation is that the district made an attempt to chat with local tribes, and it was not an earnest attempt. It was, let's check the box and then move on to the next lawsuit. Irrespective of your personal feelings about local tribes, I would say if our goal here is to honor the heritage of Long Island and Massapequa, we should be sharing that goal with local tribes who own that heritage at the end of the day.
Okay, and who are they? Who are you calling?
The first two things, I'm a collaborative guy. That's how I've been successful in my career. I would call the state, and I would call the local tribes, and I try to broker a meeting, because in my mind, if I'm the state, I'm like, I don't want this to be an issue anymore. I don't want headlines to be showing up in the New York Post and elsewhere that Massapequa and the state are at odds. New York State gives us 20% of our school budget. That's tens of millions of dollars. Let's figure out a way to resolve the situation so that we can move on to focusing again on student outcome.
Are the lawsuits working? Because at least it's getting attention.
No, absolutely not. We haven't won a single lawsuit. We've just spent more money on legal fees. We've hired law firms based out of Washington, D.C. One law firm we worked with managed Kanye West's 2020 presidential campaign. Is that who a school board should be working with? If the pathway to a solution for a school is through the courts, you should probably be working with a local law firm that has an expertise in that particular field, for example. We're not going about this the right way. We're just spending money with the goal being, presumably, to wind up at the front cover of Newsday, the front cover of New York Post.
Okay, next one. Only because you dropped the word money. You've been pretty transparent, and this is my thing. If you DM him, Bobby will answer. Which is kind of scary and says something about how intense the campaign is. But jokes aside, It's the rumor in the Massapequa Moms Group is that you're being financed by George Soros, Act Blue, or some sort of liberal-leaning think tank. Are you?
No, absolutely not. I've got 40 as of the last campaign filing, which is every dollar that's been spent on my campaign. I haven't spent money on a mailer. There's no shadow dollars being spent. Every dollar I've raised has come from individuals.
In town?
In town, but my mom lives in Chicago. She's going to contribute to this campaign. She wants to see her son win. I've got friends who used to live in New York who moved to California. People are calling out the one donation I got from California. This is somebody I worked with and respects what I'm running for. If a friend calls me from Philadelphia and says, I'd like to support, I'd like to send $50, I'm going to say that means a lot to me and thank you. But George, there's no money coming from George Soros.
You're sure?
I am positive.
George Soros is not interfering with the
You can look in my
School Board.
phone. I don't know. I don't know. No money coming from the state. I've never talked to Kathy Hochul, the Attorney General, the Education Commissioner. This is a grassroots campaign.
But you've spent $10,000 of your own money.
And it's a little embarrassing.
I know, and people are making fun of you for that.
Sure, they can go right ahead. I'm passionate about this.
Why would you spend 10? And now I've seen his house, people. He's rolling in it. Okay, I actually, you know what's funny? I thought it was a scam too, and then I pulled into the driveway of his house because that's how I get guests on the show: is I kidnap them and drive them to the local high school. But for 10 grand, you put 10 grand of your own money.
I have.
Why?
Well, I would say it's my family's money, which makes it even more challenging. But you said at the top, I'm a challenger candidate. The two individuals who are on the board who are running right now are running as a pair. So they're able to share resources. I need to figure out the best way possible to get the truth out there, to get the reality on issues, and to make sure I can reach as many people in this town as possible in a thoughtful way. I want to have conversations.
So I'll tell you, that's the other reason why I wanted to have you on the podcast. And your opponents, listen, if we could schedule it, they're very welcome to be on the Tom Kelly show. But I don't like the idea of two people running on the same backyard sign. Now I'm going to rebut my own argument. It made me think, I'd like to see school board candidates running on their own and not as a political party or as a team. Mm-hmm. But then my friend said, well, the president and vice president run together. Why not? What do you think about two people campaigning together?
I think that ultimately, I would love to hear from both of them individually a little bit more about where they stand on the issues, what their plan is in the long term with respect to the Mascot, how they're thinking about thoughtful budget management. I'd like to challenge them on line items. We have a candidate forum Monday night. And if you really love the school board and you really love talking about school politics, you should come to the candidate forum.
And that's Monday, April 27th. No promise this show aired by then.
Right.
But
so maybe it was in the past. But,
have you met them?
I've met them very, very briefly. I've met Danielle very, very briefly.
What do you think of her?
I think she's a nice woman who cares about this town ultimately, but we have fundamental disagreements in terms of what the school board should be focused on. I'm focused on student outcomes, responsible management of tax dollars, and really focused on management of the budget.
Okay. Next one. Do we want to give these guys? We'll give the truck a second to pull out.
Yeah.
I'll give you a second. So there's a loud truck. We're going to pause for 10 seconds here. So there we go. Pause. There we go. I guess that's my first ever commercial break. I wish I had a sponsor. Oh, go to Auto Spa of Williston Park. They've been taking care of me. All right. So we paused when the baseball game let out. Everybody left. You said that you met one of your two opponents. Mm-hmm. You thought she was affable.
Yeah, of course.
Nice person.
Yeah. These are people who care about the district. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
There's the other person who Cher. Okay, you haven't met Cher.
I haven't met her. I mean, I've seen her at board meetings. I attend every board meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't had a conversation.
You haven't had a conversation yet. There's a third person you're running against. Mm-hmm. Who's that?
There's a woman named Lynn who's an attorney and she's a scientist and she's running as well for one of these two open spots.
Why aren't you tag teaming with her?
Oh, because I have my own platform. At the end of the day, I want people to be able to vote based on, my positions on the issues, the voice I would bring to the school board. I'm somebody who's going to vote for Lynn ultimately. I believe in what she stands for as well. But I think,
But you're not tag teaming. You're not political party.
Correct. Exactly.
Okay, I'm fine with that. Okay. I want to ask, no, I don't want to ask you, it's funny, the big one's a transgendered one. Mm-hmm. And I'm afraid of even talking about the issue in public. Because I have love, I have love for people who have transitioned genders. Mm-hmm. I have a couple of acquaintances, if not friends, who've done it. Mm-hmm.
Do you want me to take this for you?
Would you take it for a second?
Yeah.
Tell everyone what the story is.
Yeah. So
I get a La Croix.
Go for it. So the story is, there's an act in New York State called the Dignity for All Students Act, and in this act it says that a student, amongst other things, that a student may use the bathroom that aligns with their own identified gender. This is a law in New York. In October last year, the Massapequa School Board tried to institute a policy that said you need to use facilities that align with your birth sex, your biological sex. It's an illegal policy, and so the state struck it down. The policy put educators in a tough position. Do I follow the rule that the board instituted, or do I follow New York State? If I follow New York State law, am I in trouble with the district? If I follow the district's law, am I going to get arrested by the state?
Is that a real thing? If I'm the principal of Massapequa High School, and there is a person who is born male, identifying as female, and they want to use the female bathroom, and I don't let them in, can I go to jail?
I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer.
No, but I mean, I don't know.
But my understanding from talking with some educators is that was a real fear in the building, irrespective of whether that's the reality. So I get asked a couple questions. Should boys be able to go into girls' spaces? No. Let's be reasonable here. I'm not advocating for the idea of the football player to share a bathroom with the girls' volleyball player. That's silly. But my greater issue here, there's two issues. One, the board's job is to follow the law and to implement policy in accordance with the law. So
but what if the policy is bad?
That's a fair question.
Yeah, actually, blatantly. Because, and again, I have great affection for the transgender community. And I'll tell you the one thing I don't like about how some people are handling this is, I think our town is missing love, for lack of a better word.
Completely. That's my big. We're talking about 12 and 13-year-olds that we've now.
But now going the other way, I've had nieces who have gone to school here. I don't want them seeing a cock, for lack of a better word.
I think it's unreasonable to take that leap from the idea of let's identify. So let's talk about the solution here, then, right? The solution is.
So you at least agree this is awkward. The law is awkward as stated.
I would say that the law is controversial, irrespective of its awkwardness. But if there's a law that's challenging, you try to problem solve your way around making the law less of an issue. So if we're concerned about the idea of a girl student seeing, a private part of somebody else, why is it 2026 and we're still getting changed in locker rooms that don't have privacy partitions?
So it's funny. I saw you post that. That made me laugh because when I was a 6th grade kid wearing tidy whities that might have had skid marks, I didn't want people looking at.
I've talked. My oldest daughter's 10 years old, and I said to her, in a couple of years, you're going to be in a situation where you might need to share a locker room and get changed in front of, other students. And she's like, excuse me. She doesn't. She's a private person. She doesn't want to be getting into her underwear, in front of these kids.
But going the other way on the privacy partitions, I'm a child of the 90s. I spent most of my time in private school, and one of the arguments at one point was they were threatening to take the doors off the poopers because people were smoking in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Smoking in the boys' room. There's a song about it.
Well, I would say, and I was just chatting with somebody today about this. We do need to figure out a way to mitigate people being abusive of facilities to vape. That's an issue, right?
Well, is vaping in school a big thing right
now? That's what I understand. My kids are in Birchley, and so
are they vaping in Birchley in the elementary school?
I haven't heard any rumors of that yet.
Okay.
Thankfully, Mr. Spetti's doing a very good job there on that front.
Okay.
But that's something that we should focus on our energies on. If we're saying we don't want to institute privacy partitions because we're worried people are going to abuse them to smoke, well, let's deal with the smoking issue, right? That ultimately is something that we can problem solve for, more than this idea of let's continue this cultural battle about whether, because we had bare butts on benches in locker rooms 25 years ago, the kids today should still be in that situation.
So I like your one sentence is you got to deal with the law and mitigate around
Exactly.
it. Bluntly, I don't even know if it's called Title IX, but God, Blakeman can sum it down. Do you believe people born one gender can play sports in the other?
So the reality of the situation today is if a transgender girl wanted to participate in a girl's sport, they would need to bring that to the superintendent, and the superintendent would need to make a decision. So it's a case-by-case scenario right now. It's not a blanket policy, and that's, I think, an appropriate way to govern things. And I think you need to be thoughtful about, how you deal with this on a case-by-case basis, because you don't want to set up a girls' sports team to be in a position where they're disadvantaged based on a transgender girl participating in the same sport. But it might also not be a big deal. That's why it's case by case.
Yeah, I see. And again, I think the transgendered rights will go a lot further once we figure out bathrooms in sports. I think they're losing a lot of love on that.
I think you got to start with the facilities in the class and in the schools, because this is an immediate issue that can be solved by the board. We could have put out a quote and said, what's it going to cost to put 6-foot privacy partitions in the locker room? And we could have instituted that with capital funds, and we'd be done with that. We'd be solved. We'd feel good about the fact that everybody's got the.
What's cost more, partitions or the lawsuits?
Oh, the lawsuits.
Lawsuits have cost.
Absolutely.
How much have they spent on that lawsuit? Do you know the number off the top of your head?
They've spent on lawsuits altogether since 2020 at least $600,000, is my understanding.
And what was the price on partitions?
Well, there was a single bid that was $125,000 per locker room. But if you start to bid things out, that's floor to ceiling, the top of the line. If you start to look at, what's a more cost-effective way to do this, it's going to be much less than $125,000 per locker room.
Okay. I have a lot more questions on that, but I promise to let you out on this.
Yeah.
I'll let you out soon. All right, we've done the bathroom. Okay. The tone of school board meetings. One thing that caught my eye is that, and there are people arguing back and forth on this one. Am I allowed to go to a school board meeting and present an opinion as somebody who lives in town?
If you live in town, you can sign up to make comment at a standard school board meeting. The controversial policy is about a month ago, the school board announced that at special meetings, there will not be public comment unless the board votes to allow public comment.
And what are examples of?
So 3 examples from last year: forming an alliance with the Native American Guardians Association, special interest group based in North Dakota, not a local group. Signing up for a new legal services partnership with another new law firm for the purposes of suing over the Mascot policy. And I believe there was another special meeting directed toward, it was the bathroom policy.
Okay.
Special meeting. These are important
Those
meetings.
are the ones that I would want to talk about.
Exactly. I'd like to be able to ask questions. I'd like to understand, okay, why are we aligning with a group based in the Dakotas to deal with an issue that's specifically Massapequa? But now, based on this new policy, special meetings will not have public comment unless the board says, okay, we're all going to vote to allow folks to speak in this meeting. That's hushing, transparency and collaboration. We deserve the opportunity to interact with the board if there's something controversial.
Now, I don't know the names of anybody on the board. I only know that there's 2 names on one sign off the top of my head. You have said that there might be some people on the school board either using it for politics or as a plan to run for higher office. Is that happening?
I think, if you look at headlines featuring members of the school board, if you look at the cable news programs they've been on, if you look at reports in the New York Post, there are certainly at least an individual or individuals on the board who look at this position as a platform to gain name recognition and potentially to run for other office. My commitment, if I get on the school board, I'm going to be on the school board for 3 years. I'm not going to look to run for Congress. I'm not going to.
Well, hang on. Now, but here's the thing. You've spent 10 grand of your own money, your family's money. You've spent 10 grand of your family's money to run for office. You get elected for school board. Will you ever seek higher office than school board?
Not in the next 3 years. It's a 3-year term. I'll be committed to that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But you might run for Congress one day.
I don't know. You might run for Congress one day as well.
I actually might, but that would be a joke and awful for our country. No, but I'm asking you bluntly. Do you have dreams of higher office?
I'm very passionate about public service.
Okay, and that's okay. You're allowed to say that.
Yeah,
this isn't a trap question. That's the easiest question I've asked you.
But I do want to be clear that the goal here, because you can't be a state senator and a school board member.
You can be.
You can't be.
You can't be.
And so I will be focused on the school board on bringing the top possible outcomes for students for the next 3 years of my life.
Okay. What questions have I asked you, or what is there anything I haven't asked you that you want to be asked?
Well, here's what I'll say. We just spent 25 minutes and we didn't talk about the education process here at all. We didn't talk about test grades. We didn't talk about the student experience. We didn't talk about universal pre-K. There's a lot of, we're standing in front of the Massapequa High School. We should be focused on how do we do best for these kids and at the same time do best for our taxpayers. But instead, we're spending a lot of time talking about lawsuits. We're talking about courtrooms and not classrooms. I want to get focused back on this.
But I think that's why I'm interested.
Right? Yeah.
Massapequa. I mean, it's funny. Even from my quote unquote rise to internet fame over the last 3 to 4 years. No, but you talk about the jokes. That's what you get for giving me seltzer. Yeah. No, but you talk about my quote unquote rise to internet fame.
Yeah.
Have I really done anything funnier, or is just the place that I'm talking about becoming more popular? And is that because of the clickbait issues that we're pursuing?
Well, Tom, you should be the one who's making this town funny. Let the Massapequa moms and the Massapequa Matters groups do that. When I started my campaign, I had this idea of a school board should be boring. You know, you shouldn't want to.
Look at the camera for that one. I like that one.
A school board should be boring. A comedian shouldn't be looking to have a conversation with a prospective school board member. Obviously, the school board is manufactured a way that they're going to create lightning rod moments, cultural lightning rod moments in our town that people want to talk about. But, 6 months ago, 9 months ago, would you envision talking to a school board candidate and be like, God, no. Those people sit in the board meeting. In a board.
To be honest with you, I never thought I would interview a school board candidate. I don't even know. Because I'll be honest, you're ready for the real endorsement. When the hate mail comes, I'm abstaining in this election. That's my short answer is it may affect the value of my inheritance, but I don't feel qualified even now to vote because I honestly think you are so smart, and for whatever reason you have failed to get me to change my mind either. But I think you were so smart, and it's funny. My politics are all over. I endorse Democrats. I endorse Republicans. I've campaigned for friends.
Well, can I say this?
Yeah.
I appreciate the fact that we're able to have a conversation, and we might not see eye to eye on things.
Okay,
that's what this should be about.
I think that's a great note. Normally I end the podcast. I will say this: if anybody else wants to talk to me, if you can catch me when I happen to be in Massapequa. I'd be glad to have any of the other three people on the podcast. The conditions are I have to see you on the street while I have my selfie stick. That might be a loose end. But I'm going to give you a chance. I'm going to walk out of the camera. And so, by the way, what my slogan when I end the show is always show love where love can be shown, which used to be a slogan to say, go hit like on my crap. But I kind of mean that. The one thing that I think is missing in this town often is we're such a great town of, I don't know, after looking at your house, I don't believe it's the same thing, but we are the children of civil servants here.
Mm-hmm.
And there was such a great neighbors pulling together sort of a thing. And maybe that's changing with bankers and executives moving in. But yeah, I think the one thing I like about you is there is a thoughtful tone to you. So I am going to walk out of the shot. You are going to walk up close, be all sexy like that, and you're going to look at that little camera there, and then you just say what your closing statement is, and you got 60 seconds to get people to vote
Thanks,
for you.
Tom. So, I've lived in Massapequa for 11 years. I've been fortunate enough to have 3 tenacious daughters who are in elementary school. I'm passionate about making sure that my daughters have the best possible educational upbringing, and the students that walk through the halls of Massapequa High School, of Birchland Elementary, of Umpqua Elementary, of Berner Middle School have the best possible educational experience. That's why I moved here. I wanted to raise my daughters in a strong public school setting. I wanted to live on Long Island. I love Long Island. I've lived here my entire life. So I'd encourage you, come out on May 19th, vote Bobby for board, and we're going to make this district as great as it can be.
There you go. All right. Good night, Massapequa.